Hello, how are you? My name is Aisha, and today I want to speak to you about the history of policing in America. In case you haven't noticed, people of color have a real problem with the police. This goes back in time. This is nothing new. And all the people that love to pretend as if you need to comply or you should have just listened to the officer, which is complying. You should have just laid down in the snow. You should have just let them beat you. You should have just let them rape you. Either don't know their history or don't care about their history. I am going more with they don't care about their history. They just care about whatever I say goes. And it doesn't really matter if Black people get beat down by the cops because that's exactly what you deserve. It's pretty much what I hear when people say dumb shit like all lives matter and blue lives matter. So I'm going to give you this history. So the next time a person wants to come up to you and try to tell you about the police and how wonderful they are, maybe you can give them a little bit of information about how shitty they are and how they need to do better, or how we really do need to just get rid of the police when it happens to be about Black people, brown people, because they have no respect for us. And at this point, we should have no respect for them. I can't think of anybody in this world with a sound mind that would have respect for any type of entity that abuses them, never says sorry, has any consequences, and we're supposed to just respect them because what? They drive a freaking car and have a shitty uniform? That's not enough. You get respect when you deserve respect. You don't get respect because you have on a fucking uniform. So here we go. The racist roots of American policing, from slavery patrol or slave patrols to traffic stops. So the first several paragraphs are actually about racial profiling. They bring up names like Michael Brown. They speak about Black Lives Matter, just briefly, how Black Lives Matter arose, and then a few cases over the years that's happened to Black or brown people, mostly Black people. So we're just going to get right to the slave patrols. So here we go. There are two historical narratives about the origins of American law enforcement. Policing in southern slaveholding states had roots in slave patrols, squadrons made up of white volunteers empowered to use vigilante tactics to enforce laws related to slavery. So if you've ever wondered why white people haul up guns or walk the streets and I'm just going to do a citizen's arrest, this is because they never been checked. They were empowered to do these types of things. And so still today in 2021, they still feel empowered to do these things. That's what happens when you're unchecked. That's why they got to go to the riots, or that's why they started a riot at the Capitol, and no one really says anything about it. They just say, well, that's just America. Sometimes things get sticky. Sometimes you need to take the law into your own hands. But when you're Black, you don't usually get to take the law into your own hands, because you're just an enslaved person. They located and returned enslaved people who had escaped, crushed uprisings led by enslaved people, and punished enslaved workers found or believed to have violated plantation rules. The first slave patrols arose in South Carolina in the early 1700s. As University of Georgia social work professor Michael A. Robinson has written, by the time John Adams became the second U.S. president, every state that had not yet abolished slavery had them. So they were just cropping up all around the country. Any state that didn't abolish slavery had some random ass volunteers doing American type shit. Members of slave patrols could forcefully enter anyone's home, regardless of their race or ethnicity, based on suspicion that they were sheltering people who had escaped bondage. The more commonly known precursors to modern law enforcement were centralized municipal police departments that began to form in the early 19th century, beginning in Boston and soon cropping up in New York City, Albany, Chicago, Philadelphia, and elsewhere. So all the major cities with the shittiest cops. That's where it started. All the big cities where the cops get to abuse you. And then they get to make excuses like, oh, we worked for 9 hours. We were tired. We were afraid for our lives. We had to beat this woman because she just wouldn't listen. All the shitty cities. Sorry that you guys live there. It wasn't shitty. It wouldn't be shitty if it wasn't for, America's policies. But that's just where we are. The first police forces were overwhelmingly white, male, and more focused on responding to disorder than crime. As Eastern Kentucky University criminologist Gary Potter explains, officers were expected to control a dangerous underclass that included African Americans, immigrants, and the poor. Through the early 20th century, there were few standards for hiring and training officers. That seems like today. I mean, I guess we're just in the 21st century, right? Is that what they call it? But you mean to tell me y'all have had these quote unquote volunteers since 1700s and you still haven't figured out how to train them. So that should tell everybody that they don't want to train them. They've trained them to be head bussers and that's good. Police corruption and violence, particularly against vulnerable people, were commonplace during the early 1900s. Additionally, the few African Americans who joined police forces were often assigned to Black neighborhoods and faced discrimination on the job. In my opinion, these factors, controlling disorder, lack of adequate police training, lack of non-white officers, and slave patrol origins are among the forerunners of modern-day police brutality against African Americans. So I'm going to skip over this Jim Crow laws part because I actually made a video on the Jim Crow laws. You can go watch that. So let's read this tweet. On this day in 1917, so it will be March 22nd, 1917, L. Persons, in his 50s, was lynched. He was accused of raping a white girl. He was beaten into a confession. He was doused with gasoline, burned alive, and dismembered in front of thousands of spectators. Sandwiches and snacks were sold at the lynching. So, reverberating today. For the past 5 decades, the federal government has forbidden the use of racist regulations at the state and local level. Yet people of color are still more likely to be killed by the police than whites. The Washington Post tracks the number of Americans killed by the police by race, gender, and other characteristics. The newspaper's database indicates that 229 out of 992 of those who died that way in 2018, 23% of the total were Black, even though only about 12% of the country is African American. Policing's institutional racism of decades and centuries ago still matter because policing culture has not changed as much as it could. For many African Americans, law enforcement represents a legacy of reinforced inequality in the justice system and resistance to advancement, even under pressure from the civil rights movement and its legacy. In addition, the police disproportionately target Black drivers. When a Stanford University research team analyzed data collected between 2011 and 2017 from nearly 100 million traffic stops to look for evidence of systematic racial profiling, they found that Black drivers were more likely to be pulled over and to have their cars searched than white drivers. They also found that the percentage of Black drivers being stopped by police dropped after dark when a driver's complexion is harder to see from outside the vehicle. This persistent disparity in policing is disappointing because of progress in other regards. Progress. People love to say progress because we got cell phones and body cams that are often turned off because we got the internet. What the fuck is progress when you still getting your ass beat by the police and they don't lose their job or even not even just yelled at in office for it? At the very least, we asking you to fix some shit and you're like, well, they were just doing their job. There's no progress. America loves to talk about progress, knowing damn well ain't nothing changed. Okay, I'm going to leave you guys. I appreciate you listening. I know I haven't gotten through with this. I will leave this article in the description so you can read it for yourself. This is a frustrating topic, but we all need to start learning our history. We all need to understand why we are here right now. It didn't just start yesterday. It didn't start 10 years ago. It started hundreds of years ago. And it will be lovely for you to pick up a book sometimes and read about your history. So at some point we can focus on trying to change. Hell, imagine if we all knew our history. If a bitch walked up to you and told you who you were, you could combat that shit and tell them exactly who they are. Because people don't like to be told who they are. If someone came up to you tomorrow and was like, all y'all Black people ain't shit, y'all baby mamas, y'all don't take care of each other, y'all don't even love each other, all y'all do is kill each other, and you pop back like, bitch, you do the same exact thing. You freaking pull guns on cops all the time and you still get to go to jail. You still get to see your day in court. You guys rape each other. You guys rape other people. You burn people's houses down. You do all kinds of fuck shit, but you want to tell us how we should do things. You want to tell us to comply. You want to act like we're not all people, like we all don't make the same mistakes. Know your history. I know this was a bit of a rant. I'm sorry. I actually tried to make this video 2 different times. The first time, after 4 minutes, the audio just cut out. So I had a bomb ass video from Git and I had to erase it. I appreciate you listening. Have a good day. Bye.